Congressman, 3rd District, North Carolina, Republican, that is along the Atlantic coast, up to Moyock, Elizabeth City. Many of our listeners in Congressman Jones' district, so we're good to have him with us. Republican Congressman Walter Jones, good to have you back, sir.
John, thank you very much, and I'm like you and many people on the coast area, Virginia, North Carolina. We'll take the wind, we'll take the rain. We don't like the flooding, but we'll take that instead of the eye of the hurricane. So I guess that's pretty good forecast that we won't get hit too hard.
Yeah, it could always get worse, and so we're certainly happy about that. By the way, Congressman Jones, a graduate of Hargrave Military Academy. I always like to remind our listeners that. And before we get into all the political stuff, Congressman, I just want to tell my listeners, you were a great basketball player back in the day, right?
Well, John, I was pretty good, I think, but that's the times before you had anyone playing center that was much taller than 6'7", and the things were different. But we had a great team at Hargrave Military Academy back then. We had the ability to play your freshman teams in college teams because those schools back then, if you were a freshman in a major college, you could only play 3 years of varsity basketball. Mm-hmm. So the point of that, it was a pretty fast league, and we had a great team. We really did. We won the Virginia Military League Championship, beat Stanton Military Academy 2 points in the finals of the tournament.
Now, you played in the middle. Were you a face the basket or back to the basket player?
Well, I usually brought the ball down the court, and I was a guard, and I was a pretty good outside shooter. If you'd had a 3-point shot back then, I don't know, I might have played some college basketball. Who knows? But I'm where I am now is God's will anyway. So
somebody told me that your nickname there was the Gun. Is that?
Well, I wish we would get back on politics.
Okay, let's get back on politics. Now, I want to start. We talked yesterday. You have made an endorsement for Florida Representative Daniel Webster to be Speaker of the House. Webster, the only candidate running against Kevin McCarthy, the current majority leader. Tell us why you have decided to back Daniel Webster for Speaker.
Well, John, Daniel Webster is a man of high integrity. He is the former Speaker of the Florida House of Representatives. He is a Republican, and I think we don't need anyone from the leadership team. This is nothing personal, but I don't think we need the Boehner team. Mr. McCarthy is part of that. Steve Scalise is part of that. And we don't need that. We need a fresh look, and Dan Webster brings a fresh look, plus he is a man of integrity. And I just think that the House needs it. I think America needs it. And I think he would be a great speaker because he would be the kind of man that I think would bring, as he says himself, I hope he's going to be on your show soon, he talks about the problem in Washington is that principle and power cannot coexist. We need principle in that chair, not power. We need principle for the good of the people.
So, by the way, so my listeners know, Representative Daniel Webster will be on the John Fredericks Show on Monday. That's Monday at 8:35 a.m., so we're looking forward to that. Now, look, back in Congressman Webster, obviously that's not going to play well with some of the with the leadership establishment in there. But I have to tell you, Congressman, when you look at the ill-advised statement that Majority Leader McCarthy made the other day, basically criticizing the effort to get to the bottom of the truth in Benghazi, I was kind of shocked by that.
Well, I was very disappointed. I mean, if those of us who supported the Benghazi committee and the investigation, I mean, we didn't do it for political reasons. We did it for policy reasons to find out what happened. And I think McCarthy made a terrible mistake, and particularly to the families who lost loved ones there, to indicate that all this is about is politics. That is not what the majority of us, I'm going to say all of us in the Republican Party that supported that investigation. It had nothing to do with politics. It had to do with those who gave their life for this country. I was very disappointed. That's another reason. That's a good example of why we need someone like Dan Webster who knows what he's talking about to be in the Speaker's chair. You are number 3 from being the President of the United States in that position.
Mm-hmm. Now,
and there are other things that bother me that I won't go into about Mr. McCarthy.
Mm-hmm. A lot of your colleagues in the Freedom Caucus are saying that regardless of who the speaker is, the process has to change, and it has to get back to following the Constitution, like things have to get out of committee. Somebody just can't stop that. All the things that Boehner has done. I mean, how do you stand on that?
Well, I agree totally with that. I've been speaking about that for probably 2 years down in my district. When a Speaker of the House controls what legislation gets to the floor, certainly he should have influence. We understand that. But he's taken the regular order out of the House of Representatives. The committees function, but they only hold hearings. Very seldom do they send bills to the floor unless the Speaker says, I want the bill to the floor. And John, many times, he'll bypass the committee and bring it out of the Rules Committee, which he controls. Now, he has not been a good speaker when it comes to the people of the United States having their representatives to represent their interest.
So when you get to this race, how does this work? Congressman Jones, explain to our listeners how this process for Speaker works. If it's a secret ballot, going to be in a week, how does this whole thing work?
Well, the conference will meet next Thursday, and we will determine the rules of how the process of the voting should take place. And many of us would like very much for the process to be calling the name of the individual who is in attendance in the Republican conference. If they call out Walter Jones, you have the choice of McCarthy and Webster. Jones would call out the name Webster. I don't like this idea where you just write it on a piece of paper, because I will continue to support Dan Webster even when he gets to the floor of the House, because I know that he is the right man at this very difficult time for our nation, but difficult time for the House of Representatives.
Okay, so this is going to be decided on Thursday, October the 8th, and right now it's a secret ballot, right?
Well, I think that's probably the way it will go, because they have in the past, but we can ask and we can have a discussion in the conference, which is a good thing, and ask that we have a voice vote, meaning they call your name, and we'll see. I mean, in fairness to the Kathy Rogers McMorris is the chairwoman of the conference, and she's very fair-minded. She's a good person. And I think the membership of the House, we will determine what is the proper process to make sure that it is an open process.
Congressman, let's get to some of the issues going down right now, and I want to start with the Syrian refugees. Some of your colleagues saying, look, we need to take 200,000 of these so-called Syrian refugees in, but here's what the issue is. We don't know who they are. It's now we're being told that up to 50% of them are not even Syrian. Over about 50% are young males. We have no way to vet these people. How do you
John, I'm opposed to it. I'm going to tell you, Mr. Obama just allowed 4 million children, or whatever the number was, I don't even remember anymore, to come here illegally and stay here. We just don't need to do this. We are in a deep, deep problem in this country. We continue to try to police the world. We try to bring everybody in here without the proper investigation. I'm opposed to it. I'm sorry about what's happening in the Middle East, but I blame Bush and I blame Obama for what's happened. Libya and Iraq. We have created the monster over there, but that doesn't mean we have to feel guilty and take in people we can't even investigate to know who they are. It's just wrong. I'm opposed to it.
What about the Russians going into Syria? Assad has been their ally for some time. I mean, our position is if it was our ally, we would probably go in to help the way we did with Kuwait. How do you feel about that situation?
Well, I think your point, John, is exactly right. I mean, they have had a relationship for years and years, and if the Russians, just like, as you said, we would do with our allies, if South Korea got attacked, I'm sure we would be down there to help them against the North Koreans. And so, you know, these are relationships that go way back. We cannot even if we don't have a good relationship with the Russians, we can't condemn them for coming to the aid of one of their allies that's been their allies for almost 50, 60 years. Your point was well made, John.
So right now, the Secretary of State, John Kerry, is saying, well, we can't take the position that Assad stays, and we can't take the position that ISIS stays, so we need to put someone else in there. My question is, who?
John, that's, again, I'm agreeing with you on everything. We never know who we're going to get in there. We thought taking Saddam Hussein out was the best thing for the Iraqi people. It is total chaos over there now.
Right.
Mr. Obama thought that taking out Gaddafi in Libya was going to make a better Libya. That's in chaos. We need to start taking care of America.
Right.
We need to have a strong military to say to any foreign entity, you want to attack us, you'll pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
But this trying to go around the world and create, a democracy, it doesn't work. These countries are different from us. We can't change the fact they're different from us.
All right, $500 million taxpayer money still going to Planned Parenthood. We find out in the hearings they're making $137 million. We look at their T&E, if you will, lavish events they put on, everybody flying first class, their CEO making over $500,000. Well, good for her. Why do they need $500,000 of taxpayer money? And by the way, they take some of that money and they put it in their political action committee that then they give campaign contributions to, and we find out that every campaign contribution made, not a single Republican ever got a dime. How does that make any sense?
John, I don't think there should be any taxpayers' money going to these kind of outside groups, and I would tell you, Planned Parenthood, there would be others, I'd say that. They can get their own money. You mentioned how much the salaries are, the travel, and all that expense. The taxpayer doesn't need to be involved in everybody's causes. And again, I'm a pro-life member of Congress, and I don't like what Planned Parenthood does, particularly in the area of abortions. But I'm going to tell you, I just think the federal government needs to get out of the charity business. I really do. We just can't keep doing these things. And this one, I mean, I was one of the 151 Republicans that voted no on the CR because they still had money in there for Planned Parenthood, and I think it is absolutely unacceptable. The taxpayer does not want their money paying for abortion.
We kick the can down the road again. We have a $20 trillion debt approaching, $130 trillion of unfunded liabilities. When is there going to be a serious effort, sir, in Congress to get this spending and this debt under control?
John, Congress is what I say in my Civic Club speeches, house of prostitution. And let me explain that. Everything, both parties, I'm talking about both parties, it's all about raising money. Ever since Citizens United, we have gotten more and more coerced from the standpoint of money drives policy in Washington. And I am a strong supporter. I'm on a bill with John Sarbanes from Maryland that would create an alternative. It wouldn't change it, but create an alternative to how we finance campaigns. That's where the problem is. Money drives policy in Washington. It should be people drive policy, not money. Mm-hmm. But the way it is now, it's money that drives policy. Both sides.
How do you change it?
Well, John Sarbanes is a good example, but let me give you an answer. The only way you're going to ever change and get a debate, we haven't had a meaningful debate on campaign finance reform, and you're not going to have one until you have a scandal. I always go back to the fact, John, that Watergate created political action committees because that they had a reason to have reform. We can't get a reform bill to a committee. Neither Pelosi wanted it nor Boehner. They like the system the way it is. There's a book, if I could buy for everyone in my district, called Extortion by Peter Swigert. It criticizes both parties. It talks about how they hold bills up so they can get money into the coffers of the Democrat or Republican Party. That's not good for the people. That's not good for the people.
Well, we've got to do something. I've only got a couple more minutes, Congressman Jones. You co-sponsored a bill recently calling for the impeachment of the head of the EPA. Explain.
Well, that's one of the biggest complaints we get is about EPA from people in my district. Well, one of the biggest complaints. And the whole thing is that you got these agency heads that, in my opinion, are exceeding their authority. And Paul Gosar, I believe, put that bill in. And when you have examples of agency heads exceeding their authority, you got to get their attention. And sometimes this is the only opportunity and option you have. Do I think anything will happen? No, I do not. But you got to make a statement. The people of my district, the people of America, they want members of Congress to fight for them. Mm-hmm. And too often we just say, well, that's the way it is. Well, maybe that's the way it's going to be, but you can fight.
Well, you've got to do something because many of us believe that the Republican leadership in Washington has collaborated with President Obama. I mean, look, Congressman, he's gotten everything done. I mean, You look at the November election, and I make the argument, in some instances, we would have been better off with Harry Reid there than we are with the situation now.
Well, I would tell you this, that's exactly why we are upset with Boehner. Boehner's done everything he could to cut a deal, and I don't know what in the world is going to happen now that we could not pass the appropriations bills. There were 12 of them. We passed 6 of them. We're going to have, again, in December. This is done intentionally by the leadership of the House, which is Republican. They're going to cut deals with Mr. Obama. They're going to cut deals with the Democrats, and they're going to pass what's called an omnibus bill, or a term, John, I never heard till last year, a cromibus bill.
It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. That's why the people need to be engaged. I thank you for what you do to get out here and wake people up, and they need to beat on the door of their congressman. They need to email. They need to telephone.
Daniel Webster, running for Speaker, endorsed by Congressman Jones, will be on our show Monday, 8:35. By the way, if you want more info, go to jones.house.gov. That's jones.house.gov. We want to thank Congressman Walter Jones for being with us. Great to have you, sir.